We're clinicking. How we doing? Good. Everybody doing good?
And Coach Nuss will open it up for questions. Start with Gary on the left.
Yeah, Coach, I asked Jim this question to see if you have a different perspective or the same one, but a lot of quarterbacks who are coached by their fathers, who have fathers for coaches, were coached by them, and usually the fathers were offensive coaches. Does Luke have any kind of different perspective on this game by having a father who was a coach but who was from a defensive background?
I don't know that. I would say this. I think anytime a young man gets the opportunity to grow up around the game like Luke has and to be around the phenomenal coaches and players he has, obviously you get that gym rat mentality, and they're always around ball, and they see how guys act, how they conduct themselves, how they prepare. I think that's an advantage. And I think when you watch the way Luke conducts himself on a day-to-day basis, those things over time have rubbed off on him, and he's taken that to heart.
Edgar.
Coach, your voice is almost gone. You haven't even started practice.
Well, we just did our goals and our expectations, so that was a good meeting. But it seems to be this way year round now. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old.
What is the biggest growth you've seen in Luke? I mean, you've known him a lot of years. What's the biggest areas of growth that give you confidence that he's going to be able to handle a job that he's really never done before? I mean, he has very limited experience at the college level.
Well, you talk about growth, and I think growth comes in a bunch of different areas. You talk about, the balance of any student athlete, and you talk about the academic side, the athletic side, and the social side. And I think when you look at Luke, he's so well adjusted across the board, and I think you have to be to have success at this level.
And also last year, how limited were you guys just by the struggles of the offensive line, the quarterback change and struggles there? I mean, just how limited was the playbook?
Well, we struggled with it a lot, when you look at it. Let's be honest about it. But you also looked out there, and what you saw was at times you saw 5 true freshmen, and you saw guys competing maybe in situations that weren't ideal. They never backed down. They fought. They competed. And that's how you develop a championship caliber team is guys, you watch certain players in situations where maybe it's not an advantageous situation, how they react. Do they back down? Do they turn and make it about somebody else and not be accountable for their actions? And I'm really excited. This group's worked extremely hard to see the growth that they've made over the last year. Really, really excited about where they are as we go into camp. Obviously, we've got to get it better at a lot of things. That's maybe a lot of the excitement is to watch how much growth we're going to have, not only where we came from the end of last year through spring, but where we'll be from the start of camp to the end of camp.
Gene on the left.
At this time last year, did you have any kind of inkling or premonition that potentially it could be a long year for the offense, even if you did find a quarterback? And how does that compare to this year, where at least you have players that are going through the system for the second time?
Well, like I said, really excited after having a year and watching these players grow, and then the influx of new players. When you add 5 new wide receivers to our depth, obviously at a position we didn't have great depth last year. The line situation where you look out there, I don't know how many teams have started a bowl game with 3 true freshmen starting on the offensive front, and you see those guys, the growth that they've made in a year. The ability now we can actually practice in 2 different squads because we have depth and we have some numbers at some positions. Really excited about that, and really excited to see the individual growth of these players. And we have some new players that we haven't had a chance to work with yet. Really excited to see what recruiting did for us.
As a follow-up to that, what are your expectations for this season for the offense, even if you can't specify it in numbers?
Well, we want to be a situationally good offense. We want to be able to win the special situations, things that we preach on a day-to-day basis. And you look at the things that really hurt us last year, it's, lost yardage plays. Obviously the sacks are an alarming stat that stands out to you now. When you have sacks, everybody points at the offensive line right off the bat. Well, it's not necessarily that. The receiver's got to be where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be. The quarterback has to get the ball out of his hands. There's a lot of things that play into it. We've got to become a better red zone team. Obviously, we had challenges there. We've got to become a better third down team. Those special situations are the areas that we really got to grow in as a group.
Zach up front.
Doug, Brandon Powell is your most proven playmaker at receiver outside of Callaway that you can have back. Two things: how important is it that he is back and healthy, and two, how beneficial is it that he's got some competition now there with Trey Macy?
Well, I think this, when you look at Brandon, guy started the season phenomenally, and then to have the injury really slowed him towards the end of the season. So to watch him progress back, to watch how hard he's worked, really excited to get him back out there. He brings a totally different element to the offense, and a guy that has played running back, but now you put him in the slot and can create matchups, and his ability when he gets the ball in space, he's very difficult to put your hands on.
And then what do Goolsby and Lewis kind of bring to that tight end position as far as just a different dimension than what Jake McGee offered?
Well, I think both those guys run extremely well. They're very good athletes. They may not be the 260-pound hammerhead tight ends, but they've got really good length. They run really good routes. They understand how to set up routes. Excited about both those guys. Ciante obviously got injured, so he missed time last year. DeAndre, I think he's going to take his game to a whole nother level than where he finished the season last year.
Robbie on the left.
Coach Mack isn't ready to name a starting quarterback. How close are the two, and how effective can they be running this offense?
I think they're both very close. I think they can both be extremely effective. Very excited about the competition that's going to be created, and not just at quarterback, across the board. Like I said, we finally got some depth at some positions where we can really, kind of roll the ball out and watch some people compete. Where, I don't think you ever get better when you've got players that know really the player behind them can't challenge them for their spot, and you want to have somebody who maybe when you start you start practice with a depth chart because you have to put people in groups. And you say, well, somebody's with the ones and somebody's with the twos. Well, if the two is pushing to be the one and the three is pushing to beat the two, you're getting your team to where you want to be. And I think we're starting to get that across the board at a couple of different positions. It's going to make us a better team.
And how much has C.J. Wharton grown in the year that you've been with him?
Really, really good season, off-season, excuse me. And C.J., I think, as much as anything, has really started to get it. He's really maturing as a young man, understanding how to take the things that he learns in the classroom when it comes to the game and apply it to the field, and how to physically put himself in the best shape by what he does in the weight room and his conditioning and those type of things, because he's a phenomenal athlete, and I think he's really just starting to scratch the surface, but he's got a big, big upside, and really excited to see what kind of camp he'll have.
Ryan up front. And Mike.
Did we just eliminate one side here, Will?
How would you characterize Luke's leg up or advantage in the competition at this point, and when do you want to have a definitive plan there at quarterback?
Well, we'll make the decision when we're ready to make the decision and when we think the timing's right. I don't think you sit here today and say it's this day or that day. Like I said, I really like the depth that we're developing in that room, and I think it's close competition across the board. I'm really excited to see all four guys play, not just Luke and Austin. But obviously, as we came out of spring, we talked about Luke had a slight edge, and we're going to let him compete and see where we end up.
And then at running back, you had a true workhorse there last year. Do you see more balance in that rushing attack this season? Is that kind of your preference?
Ideally, in this league, you'd like to have a couple guys that you can count on and interchangeable parts, so to say. Obviously, Kelvin did a great job for us last season. Really excited about that group and the depth. I think Mark Hernan's a guy who last year was really trying to find his way back to health and not really able to contribute at the level that he's going to be able to at this season. Really excited about, he did a great job on special teams, but the offensive element that he developed through spring and the things he was capable of doing, obviously adding Mark from the JUCO ranks and the two Jordans, and then LaMichael P. Ryan coming in. So, like I said, we're developing some depth there to have competition.
Mike on the right.
Yeah, Coach, a lot of times offensive coordinators are referred to as offensive geniuses or masterminds. Does it take a certain amount of creativity to be an offensive coordinator?
Well, I don't know. I was pretty bad in art class, so when you talk about being creative, that's not me. I would say this. I've always believed, and when I was fortunate enough to play some, the game's about winning. Offensive defenses are pieces to the bigger picture, which is the team. And so whatever you have to do on offense to win is what you want to be. And sometimes that means, obviously, you want to score as many points and you want to have, these statistical numbers and all that. But at the end of the day, sometimes you've got to play to the strength of your team. But when you talk about the guru status and all that thing, ultimately it's about putting the players in the best chance to have success. The players play the game, coaches coach. So how do you put the players in the best position they can to be successful?
Will you tap into Spurrier's guru mentality?
How would you not? You know, I mean, you got the statue every day we see as we come into work, and, you know, just having watched Coach from a distance over time and what he's been able to accomplish offensively, and sit down and have the conversations that we've had and the things. You talk about a great resource within the building, and to not use it to me would be foolish, you know, his success, and especially at the quarterback position. You're always, I think if you're trying to grow as a coach, you're always reaching out to other people within your profession or people that you respect and asking opinions and, hey, how do you do this? Or hey, would you look at what we're doing here and tell me if you might have a suggestion you think we could do better? And really excited to have that resource in the building.
Gene on the left again.
Last year, Coach talked about Ahmad Fullwood. Wasn't sure that he would go after the ball the way he would like to see him go after the ball. Today, again, he talked about his need to be more aggressive. Is that what, in your estimation, is that what keeping him from having the kind of career that, you know, a lot of people expected out of him? Because it just seems that we're still waiting for Ahmad Fullwood to kick in.
There's that expectation thing again, you know. Ahmad works extremely hard. Ahmad has great size, and you talk about physicality, and that's one of the areas of his game. When he plays physical and he plays aggressive, you see him do some really, really good things, and we're trying to find that on a down-to-down basis. But he's a guy who does everything exactly the way we ask him, and really hope that he'll take that next step, and we'll have that big breakout season that we've been looking for.
Jordan on the left.
Hey, Coach, you touched on the running backs a little bit already. What kind of stood out from the two Jordans last year, and what are you expecting from them to hopefully take another step forward this year?
Well, what's the first thing? True freshman. Obviously, that always stands out to you. I think the one thing about Jordan Cronkite that really stood out to me was his ability to do things in formation in the passing game. And you saw the phenomenal play he made at South Carolina. He's a really good athlete and has really good feel when you start doing some of the receiving things, as well as being a good tailback. And then Jordan Scarlett, his physicality, his ability to run the football downhill. And I think you saw a little glimpse of that big run against Vanderbilt, against Georgia. You got to see some things like that from him. And I'm really excited. Those guys year two, obviously, you know, the curve was really steep for them. So the curve has slowed down from a learning standpoint. Really curious now to watch their natural skill level start to take over and really implement some of the things we asked them to work on in the offseason.
A couple more guys just finished over there.
Yeah, given all the unknowns on offense, and Coach Mack even addressed that there's a lot of, you know, unknowns here. What is kind of the, you know, the bedrock, I guess, of your confidence that this team's going to take a nice leap this year or there?
Confidence in the character of our kids and the leadership of Coach Mack. Believe in what we're doing, believe in how our kids have approached it. We've got the right makeup, we've got the right attitude. We've got to go out and do it now.
There was some high praise in a recent article in Athlon. It's about you guys formationally and keeping teams off guard and stuff. Do you feel like maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked at times, that guys were getting open but just maybe weren't getting the ball, that there were some good things happening that you guys can build on that maybe the layman didn't see?
Well, you know, once again, it goes back to putting the players in the best possible position to have success. And if that means we've got to do some shifting and some motion, those type of things, that's what we'll do. Obviously, we're not a team that's built on speed of play. You know, it's a big emphasis right now, speed of play, number of snaps. That hasn't been who we've been. Now, we're going to change and do some things differently that we haven't done. Obviously, if you're not evolving, you're not getting better. So we're going to do some things a little bit differently. I think our quarterback room, their grasping of the things we're trying to accomplish and their knowledge is going to allow us to do some different things with them that maybe we didn't do a year ago. But really excited about the different types of players we have at different positions that allow you to do some of those things, and hopefully that allows you to do some different things to keep people off balance defensively.
Anything else, guys? All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
guys, camera's ready in the back. All right, we'll open up the questions for Coach Collins.
Hey guys, how are y'all? Yes, sir.
Coach, could you just talk a little bit about how Nick Washington has evolved at his position, and as a follow-up to that, other guys in the secondary talk about his aptitude for understanding and putting them in good positions.
Right.
Could you also address that part of it as well?
Nick had a really good offseason for us, had a really good spring practice for us. He was in the rotation last year at safety, was a big-time special teams player for us. I was actually watching the SEC network this summer. When the special teams or offense is on the field, I don't really get to watch much. I'm over on the sidelines coaching the defense up. And Nick scored a touchdown in the Georgia game. That's pretty cool. So, but yeah, his progression has been great. He knows the defense inside and out. He knows all the positions, makes all the calls for us, gets corners lined up, nickels lined up if they need it. And, I just think he's going to have a great season for us. With May coming back, that was huge for the program, him working towards getting his degree. And Marcel Harris, Chauncey Gardner coming in here early at the safety position. There's really good competition, but I think they complement each other well. And they're a bunch of unselfish players that want to see the best guy on the field and rotate through.
You ever seen Nick do the group this year?
Yes, I have actually. I have. It's impressive. It's impressive.
Robbie and then Edgar.
Coach Caleb Brantley, how much has he matured in the last year, and can he be one of the best defensive tackles in the country?
Yeah, we defense staff, and I think the coaching staff as a whole, feel Caleb Brantley could be as dominant as a defensive lineman as there is in the country. The big thing from last year, he was a naturally gifted player, played 3 technique, played some nose for us, and has such tremendous takeoff, violent explosion into the backfield. Sometimes he's so athletic, he would get out of gaps at times last year. You watched him throughout the spring working with Coach Rump. Really improved his technique, his hand placement, his gap integrity, all those things that you ask of a guy that's in his position, been in the program this long. And so we're excited about him. He's a confident individual, and combine his confidence, his raw natural athletic ability, and then the technique and discipline that he's really worked on this offseason and throughout the spring. I think that's a dangerous combination for him.
Yeah, Coach, last year you arrived, you said you kind of wanted to, keep things kind of going as they were. This year, what kind of stamp do you personally kind of want to put on this defense and going forward?
Well, I think the big thing, the recognition as a whole coaching staff, from Coach Mack to the defensive staff, recognizing the kind of players that we had, the things that they had done well in previous years, kind of taking that information, using it, and producing what many consider to be an elite defense. As the year went on, we learned more and more about the guys, and through the offseason, experimented with some things that obviously I won't divulge here. But I think the progression of the defense has been really positive. Gained the kids' respect early, gained their trust, and have just built on that as we've gone throughout the last season, throughout the spring and the offseason.
And on that note, going forward, I mean, part of that's recruiting, obviously.
Right.
How much pressure have you felt as a recruiter to kind of maintain the defensive status, and how do you kind of sell this defense of yours?
Well, I think the big thing is there's a standard for how defense is played here. There's a standard for how the defensive coaches coach at the University of Florida, and we uphold that every single day. The kids that we bring in, that we brought in with this signing class, will add to that. Obviously, we lost, 5 guys that got drafted in the NFL, along with Brian Poole, who I think started at nickel yesterday for the Falcons in camp. So, you got 6 NFL players off of last year's defense. The challenge for us is those young guys throughout this offseason, throughout the preseason, to step up and contribute. Which ones of those we don't know. I think throughout the spring we found some guys that will really contribute defense, special teams, but just finding who these new guys are that are step up for us and play.
Oh, hi, Coach. Couple of questions, quick questions here. I think the key word that you've hit on is confidence. I was talking with Caleb earlier. He thinks this defensive line could be the best in the country. Your feelings on that, and how close do you think they are to that?
Well, the big thing for us is at each position group that you look at on our defense, there are some guys, 1 or 2 at each position, that could be in the conversation for as good of a player at their position in the country. SEC definitely, nationally. But the big thing for us is those guys developing the leadership ability to get some of the other guys to come with them so they can contribute. So the defensive line, obviously Cox, Brantley, Joey Ivy played a lot of good football for us. C.C. Jefferson came on as a true freshman last year, expecting big things out of him. And then the linebacker position, Jared Davis, obviously he had a great year. Fortunate that he decided to come back for a senior year, come back to get his degree. And obviously Marcus May coming back, and then Jalen Tabor, Quincy Wilson. We got some guys. The key is going to be to fill those other guys in place so you have 24 SEC players that can contribute and roll throughout a game in this league. And as we all know, the tempo keeps increasing from offenses across the country, offenses across the league. So the times of having 11 strong are long gone. You need to have 18, 22, 24 guys that you can roll through and play at a high level.
Zach.
Geoff, Jalen Tabor's gotten a lot of hype this offseason, and deservedly so, but it's almost kind of overshadowed Quincy Wilson and almost made him kind of a forgotten guy.
Gotcha.
But, for you guys to not have a drop-off at cornerback with Vernon gone, he's as important as Jalen is. What kind of player is he in your eyes, and how key is he to that position?
Well, there are times throughout last season where, we arguably had three of the elite DBs in college football, three of the elite corners in college football were Vernon, Tease. I just read Twitter, make sure we call him Tease. Vernon, Tease, and Quincy, in our secondary, playing at a high level. I think at times Quincy did get overlooked, but he's such a competitive kid. He's a good kid. He just every day works on his craft and wants to make a name for himself. I remember we played, Ole Miss out here in the swamp, and, I think Laquan Treadwell was one of the better receivers in college football, and obviously now going to the NFL. And Quincy was as dominant of a player throughout that game, whatever matchup he might have had. And so we're expecting big things from him. Just do what he does. He's a long, rangy, athletic kid. And, same thing with Tees, expecting big things out of them.
And then you were just asked about the defensive line, but for most defenses that lose a guy like Jonathan Bullard and Alex McAllister, coach would be scrambling the next year of trying to fill that void. What does it say about your guys' depth and also development of those players that you guys are, not expecting much of a drop-off there?
Well, I think the whole theme that Coach Mack has built is just the next man up. The first meeting we had in the offseason, I know I talked about it in the spring, but the first meeting we had as a unit in the offseason, here's the production we lost. So we're talking about defensive line, Alex McAllister, John Bullard. Here's the production that is off the table: sacks, tackles for loss, fumble recoveries. We need to find this production and get it back in this defense, whether it be one guy, two guys, or, 4 or 5 that replace that production. That production still needs to be there. And I think the guys have taken that challenge, and we did that across the board at every level of the defense. And the guys have kind of taken that challenge and want to, get ready.
Coach, you saw the potential you mentioned of C.C. Jefferson. What do you want to see from him during this fall as he goes into the next season?
Sure. Like the outfit, by the way. A little sharp. CeCe, I think, had a really good freshman year. At times relied a lot on his athletic ability. But I think the big thing through Austin, kind of like with Caleb Brantley, is really focusing on understanding the defense, not just relying on your natural athletic ability to make plays, but making plays within the framework of the defense. We've moved him around a bunch. He's played the rush for us. He's played the end. At times, like we did with John Bullard, played him inside. And so I think he can be a force as long as, the effort is there, the technique is there, which he has shown so much during the spring.
What do you think a healthy Alex Anzalone is capable of for you?
Sure. Alex Anzalone, I think going into last preseason or going into the season last year, there was debate or even conversation that he might be one of the best players on our football team. And I think through the first 2 games he showed that. He was all over the field making plays, making calls. He makes the people around him better. So having a guy like J.D., who we know what J.D. did last year, and adding an Alex Anzalone, high character kid, intelligent kid, wants to win, cares about his teammates. There's some things about Alex you guys might not have seen, but during the season, home games, whenever we'd be on the sideline during a timeout or, between quarters, change of possession, whatever, Alex Anzalone was right there in the middle, talking to the guys, encouraging the guys. And at times, in the past places I've been, some of the guys might not would have listened to someone who's not playing. But Anzalone has such great respect from his teammates, such great respect from his coaches. They embraced him and listened to him and kind of, were urged on with him. So having him back is great.
This spells out some of the previous questions, but losing 6 NFL caliber guys, you might expect a drop off, but there's, as you mentioned, there's people in every spot to fill in. How seamless do you think that transition is going to be overall?
The big thing is we've talked about, we don't want to just start new. We need to build on where we were last year, playing at a high level of defense, and just bring these guys along and figure out which guys are really going to come in, step up, and contribute in a big way for us. And I think our guys have really embraced that. They have a high standard for how we play defense, and it's not just a Jared Davis, a tease. It's all of them. This is how we play defense at the University of Florida. We have a lot of pride. We have an edge. We have a certain swagger that we play with, and we want to bring those guys along and get them in place so they can be the part of that.
Coach, you mentioned that depth on the D-line a couple times, but to signal one guy out, what kind of progression have you seen from Jordan Sherritt in your time here, and what do you expect out of him this year?
Sure. Jordan is a guy that knows the defense inside and out, can basically play any position that we need him across the front four. Probably if we need him to play linebacker, he could do that. I think the thing about Jordan Sherritt, and I'll talk about Brian Cox at this time too, those are two of arguably the hardest playing defensive players I've ever been around. Their motor, their energy, their pursuit to the ball is as high as anybody in the country. And so I think that kind of gives them the edge to play at a high level for us.
Are there any concerns on your part about having a guy like Nick not only starting for you this year, but also playing all 4 special teams union? Is that really all that unusual? And any concerns about that? Yeah, well,
I think the nice thing for us is having a guy like Marcel Harris, having a guy like Chauncey Gardner coming in early and playing for us. The thing about Nick, too, and I know you guys have been around him, he's one of the fittest individuals that there is. He doesn't get tired. He can play at a high level from the first play of practice to the last play of practice, special team circuit, special teams periods, skelly, whatever it is. Nick is going 100 miles an hour the entire time. Providing depth at that position will be huge, and just seeing how we, mix and match things special team wise. But he loves special teams. He's a really good special teams player, and being a big time safety for us as well. I think he can handle all that.
Finish up with that great thing.
Yeah, Coach. Jared Davis seems to kind of set the tone and inspire his teammates.
Right.
What stands out to you about his leadership?
First of all, it's his character, his upbringing. I was driving home last night and called his mom and just kind of raved about him, what a great individual he is, what a hard worker he is. He is a driven human being to be the absolute best he can be at anything he does. If he's going to be a face of the program and go out for season tickets and carry peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, he's going to do that as hard as he can do it. He's going to put everything he has into it. If he's going to be in the training room, he's going to be all in while he's in that training room, rehabbing, prehabbing, whatever the case may be, film study, conditioning with Coach Kent, whatever the case may be. But the thing that separates him is his character and his drive really separates him. Obviously he's a great athlete, great football player, but I think those two things really set him apart.
He was talking at media days in Birmingham about, the team sticking, how the team's sticking together, just team unity.
Sure.
How do you promote that, especially when so much burden was placed on the defense, and you're going to have a young offense again this year and maybe have some growing pains? I mean, how do you promote that among your players?
Well, I think Coach Mack does a great job understanding who this team is, understanding who the leaders are, pulling them aside. Here's where we can improve. Here's where we need to step up. And I think every player on our team, to a man, has such love and belief for Coach McElwain that here's a direction we're going to go in. It doesn't take much to get those leaders to buy and dive in and set the tone for us. And I think there's such the culture that's been created by Coach Mack feeds into that, and those guys say, Jared Davis is doing this, he wants us to do it, let's go. Same thing with Tees or Quincy or May or whoever it may be. Here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it. The buy-in factor, I think, is at an all-time high.
And then we'll finish up with Nick.
You talked last year about playing above the line, below the line, as far as who's going to get on the field. Have you had that conversation with guys yet? And right now at cornerback, do you have more than just 3 guys above the line?
So we talk about it all the time. Probably 3 or 4 times during the spring we had that conversation. After spring we had that conversation. As we get into these meetings right now that we'll start having with them, the conversation, we don't really have a 2 deep on defense around here, because a lot of times if you get labeled as a 2, you're going to play like a 2. If you get labeled as a 1, a lot of times you'll play as a 1, but a lot of times there's not that pressure to even take your standard to another level. For us, every single day they're fighting for reps. That goes from the ones that are the all-conference, preseason all-conference guys, former All-Americans. There's pressure to perform every day because they're fighting for reps. And so we just got to find which guys at corner, which guys at safety, which guys we need to cross-train. So if you guys watched in the spring, we cross-trained all the DBs. We cross-trained all the linebackers. We cross-trained all the D-line to find that best match to play at such a high level.
And do you kind of tell them that that can be fluid? You could be above the line?
It's every day. It could be a Wednesday of game week, and it's happened. Your reps get cut at a Wednesday of the game week. Your reps get cut. So all the time, it's a fluid environment from practice. And the thing we tell them is practice is everything. So how you perform in practice, you're earning reps, or you're cutting away from your reps, throughout practice. So
Thanks, guys.
thanks, guys.
Guys, there's pizza in the back, and then I'll send the ASAP quotes as soon as I get them.